Origin just reaction. This is the greatest rescue 11th Airborne Division's epic raid on Los Baños. That's I don't know, lake, river or something, right? So yeah, I saw the first half of this yesterday. If you haven't seen them, check out the comments below, I guess, or the link in the description. I don't know, but yeah, this has been such an insane story because first of all, everybody talks about how in World War II, how effed up things were in Europe, basically, right? How Germany was, how effed up that was. But nobody talks about. I know there are some instances in China where Japan did, what in Nanking and things like that. There are some instances people talk about, but in general, people don't talk about Japan being too effed up. This story was so insane, first half of it at least, that it was beyond inhumane, right? The guy who was the evil, Federation said he's just evil, which, like, I should have seen that coming. Like, as soon as he's just a point blank evil, I should have expected that. So all the things he did to people, that is just insanity, right? uh, Even if somebody just wants to hurt people, there is a limit where they'll go, because in the end, if you push people too much, they'll revolt. There's a fear of, like, okay, there are like 1,000, 2,000, whatever people are in the camp. What if they all suddenly decide it's now or never, we're going to die anyway? But I guess he didn't care about that. He was doing insane things, right? Which was so effed up. I can't even process that, like living in that type of conditions, right? And transition was so great. Only angels can save you. And then talking about 11th Airborne, who's like called angels sarcastically because they were like, I don't know, like doing all the crazy shit. So what are our angels up to now? And that SUV thing, right? The guy, the main general sent a guy there to, organize gorillas, all the gorillas. There were 5, 6 whatever gorillas, and he just like pops into limousine SUV. That is so badass. It's like I can even see it like Hollywood style, like George Clooney, Brad Pitt type of shit, right? Ocean 11 type. Somebody just comes up with dapper suit and everything. That is so. After that, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do everything this guy's saying now because the way he came here. In enemy territory, he came with style. So yeah, that is so awesome. So I guess we're gonna see the actual battle now, right? I'm hoping there's a good ending to this, right? Because an hour-long video, reality doesn't go the way we want. I'm hoping there's a good ending. This, like, people get saved or something. Only angels can save. I hope they do save them. So yeah, let's watch one. Remember, you will flag my next and don't forget to subscribe. So, that way I know which type of videos to react to more. I've watched many different type of videos from like this, history, basically. This is history. Geopolitics, like anything military equipment type of videos, jets, this and that, and video games. I just made like the Frank video about the bees. There was also an insane video, how bees can be intelligent. So I make many, I react to many different type of videos. So YouTube doesn't like that usually. YouTube likes one type of videos a lot. So, algorithm is like go up and down, up and down. So the more engagement this video gets, the more, I guess, I don't know, the video and channel can be helped. So that would be really appreciated. Let's watch it.
Great. In addition to that, there was also a huge psychological factor because you got to remember, Jay Vanderpool's like coordinating the guerrillas. I keep referring to him as the leader, but he's not actually in charge. The real guerrilla leaders could tell Jay Vanderpool to get fucked at any point in time, and he would have no other choice but to do so. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I'm trying to get the message across to you that these Filipino guerrilla fighters don't really give a shit about the Geneva Convention. They've never even heard of her. Believe me, you would much rather come toe-to-toe with the American military at this point in time because these Filipino guerrillas were not taking prisoners and they were not messing around. They are experts in jungle warfare, and they do not like the Japanese. The Japanese have been extremely cruel to
the Philippines. I think Federation talked about one of his videos, right? What it was, I don't know, Filipinos in World War II. That's they were really powerful in guerrilla warfare. Geneva? What you just said? Repeat that. What is Geneva? That's what that was.
Filipino people for the last 3 years of the occupation, and they are out to get straight up revenge. Like, if you got shot and injured going up against the Filipino guerrillas, you weren't injured for very long because as soon as you hit the ground, the bolo knives are coming out, and these guys are looking at you like my wife looks at Amazon packages, okay? And every single time I bring something like this up, I get this in the comment section. Buh! That's a war crime. Buh! To which I mean, yeah, sure, I guess, but I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Because you say it with this conviction like you think RoboCop is going to descend from the heavens and enforce justice. Because I hate to break it to you in your fragile worldview, but guess how many Filipino guerrillas got convicted of war crimes after World War II? Absolutely fucking zero. Okay, now look, I'm not saying that's right, I'm just saying.
I mean, everything has gone to shit. They are starving, babies and like pregnant women there in the camp. Are you fucking kidding me? Right? It's like, living in world of thieves and murderers, right? There is a saying where like in India, basically. I don't know how to translate that exactly in English, but this world is made of like thieves and murderers. Don't ask me who's honest. Basically, something like that, right? So this is insane, man. Of course, there's gonna be like, yeah, you're covered in everything gone to shit. This is World War II. There is a reason why it's called World War, because it's happening everywhere. African theater, like, European theater, Asian theater now, Pacific, right? You don't know where that's gonna end. If Nazi Germany wins, you think Geneva Convention even exists after that? Come on. So at this point, people are gonna think about, is this a war crime? Should we do this? Let's pull out the book of ethics. No. What is more effective way to win? That's what they're thinking.
That it happened. And to be honest with you, I'm not that upset about it. I mean, we've all seen those situations, right? It's not appropriate to punch somebody in the face, but also, if you're at the bar with your wife and some dude walks up, smacks your wife on the ass, and says, "Hey, sweetheart, how would you like to go home with a real man?" And you turn around and punch that motherfucker in the face, fucking, he kind of deserved it. And if you don't like that, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. But guess what? The good news in all of this is it's easily avoidable. All you have to do is not invade the Philippines and then go out of your way to be evil and cruel to all.
Yeah, it's a great point, right? Agree to disagree. But the reality in democracy, people who agree more usually are like the right one. That's why no one was convicted of war crime, Filipinos, because most people realize our ass was on fire. Right, we barely survived. All right, let's not persecute people who actually did the saving thing right now.
All the locals for no fucking reason, and this probably won't happen to you, okay? Simplest concept in the world. I know a lot of people struggle with it. I'm gonna say it real slow. Don't fuck around and you won't find out, okay?
I hope that this lesson is helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Moral of the story, the Filipino guerrillas are out in the jungle being complete gangsters going up against the Japanese. Now, after a while, it gets to the point where Vanderpool's contact is like, "Yo, you need to chill. You're expending so much ammo that the general whose AO that you're inside of is going to get mad that you're taking up some of his ammo, and you just need to slow it down because you're burning up too much." To which his guy's like, "I don't know, it's some hard ass by the name of General Swing who's in charge of the 11th Airborne Division." To which Vanderpool is like, "Cool, you send General Swing down here. He can see my results, speak for themselves, and we'll see what he has to say." So it's a date. The next morning, General Swing is going to have his driver bring him out to where Vanderpool is, and they're going to have a little conversation about how much ammunition he's burning up. But before that happens, that night, the guerrillas set up guarding a particular road, and as it would happen, right at dusk, an entire Japanese battalion comes marching down this road, advancing towards the American lines. The guerrillas launch an ambush and wipe out the entire battalion, 1,000 men. So the next morning, General Swing comes rolling down the very same road with his driver and his aide in his car and an armed escort, and he gets about halfway there and he starts noticing there's an awful lot of opened Amazon packages, dead guys on the side of the road. And the closer he gets to where
It's basically like how you play Witcher 3 and you come across a road and there are like dead bodies everywhere. Something happened here, let's investigate. Yeah, Filipinos did all this shit.
Vanderpool's supposed to be, the more and more of them there are. And after a little bit, General Swing just tells his driver, "All right, turn this shit around." He leans over to his aide and says, and I quote, "You give Vanderpool all the goddamn ammunition he wants." So this continues for about a month as the American forces fight their way through Luzon to Manila. So Battle of Manila kicks off February 3rd, 1945, and the first order of business is to liberate Santo Tomas internment camp, and that also happens on February 3rd. And what they find at Santo Tomas is absolutely horrific. The conditions of the camp have done nothing but gone down since 1943, and the conditions that they are living in 1945 are very similar to what I've already highlighted when I talked about Los Baños previously. Because of this, General MacArthur himself decides that he needs to see this with his own eyes, so he goes and visits Santo Tomas and immediately decides that his next order of business is to liberate the Los Baños internment camp immediately, and he gives that order directly to General Swing in the 11th Airborne Division. Okay, I need you to understand.
Yeah, basically, he probably all them assume like these are civilian camps. Surely they'll be like, I'm not saying they are like flowing with the rations and things, but at least there'll be humane things there, right? After seeing all the shit that is happening, yeah, of course, your first thing will be like, fuck that, let's just rescue this civilian camp. This is insane.
That's a really big deal. General MacArthur is like top dog in the military. It's President, MacArthur, everybody else. MacArthur doesn't tell individual divisions or units what to do. He doesn't give those kinds of orders.
Yeah.
He tells entire military branches what to do, and those orders get disseminated down through the ranks amongst the different generals, and it goes through like a whole chain of command thing. He has just skipped several rungs of the command structure to give this order directly to General Swing, which speaks volumes as to what MacArthur thinks of the 11th Airborne, because he thinks that they are the exact exact people for the job, and
They're
he
the
doesn't want the chain
protagonist.
of command to fuck that up. So while the 11th Airborne Division is actively fighting in Manila, they are also beginning to make preparations to somehow rescue an internment camp that is 40 miles away. So right out of the gate, Vanderpool sends a bunch of guerrillas over to Los Baños. They're going to be living in the jungle 24/7, keeping an eye and keeping tabs on the internment camp and reporting back any intel they have. In addition to that, the guerrillas also have standing orders to make an emergency attack and try to save as many internees as possible if they need to. The reason for that is because there's a pretty big and pretty legitimate concern that if the Japanese are going to abandon that internment camp, that they would try to execute all the prisoners first. And in the unfortunate event of that happening, the guerrillas have the orders to attack and try to save as many people as possible. Now, with the planning of this mission, bear in mind that the 11th Airborne is still fighting actively in the Battle of Manila, and while that's going on, they're also trying
Flamethrower. Yeah, I forgot, right?
to plan
Wait,
this mission, and this mission is
I forgot they use flamethrowers in the, like, properly use flamethrowers. It's not like sometimes, somewhere, no. They use flamethrower to flush people out from, like, bunkers and shit. I totally forgot that. I mean, that is so insane. Really think about it. In today's warfare, people don't just use flamethrowers, right? There's a reason why people think flamethrowers are cool, because people don't use it. It's mostly a Hollywood thing, right? Rarely some situation might arise, people think, okay, let's use something similar as flamethrowers. Nowadays, mostly like bombs and things that are like equal to that, right? Like incendiary things. But flamethrowers is like insane. Back then, people were just like using flamethrower to flush people out. Just to see that, as feels like, what is this, video game? Is this a movie? No, it's fucking real life.
seemingly impossible. Now, the planning of this mission is done by a young officer in the 11th Airborne known as Henry Mueller, and his plan is absolutely genius. Okay, so here's the initial problem. Los Baños is 40 miles behind enemy lines, and there is an entire infantry division between the Americans and this internment camp, approximately 10,000 Japanese soldiers known as the Tiger Division. So if the Americans launch a major offensive and try to punch through and destroy that division, they're going to radio back to Los Baños, and they're worried that that means that they're going to execute all the prisoners. So that's not really an option, meaning the only thing they can do is do an airborne operation where they jump in right on top of the internment camp. So Mueller starts getting intel back from the guerrillas, and they have this hand-drawn map of the camp and the surrounding area, and there's this big-ass field about 1,000 yards away from the Los Baños internment camp, and it is big enough for them to be able to land an entire company of paratroopers there. But you still have the issue of
gliders
the
and things.
C-47s have to fly overhead, the company has to jump out of the planes, float down, land, get their shit together, and run as fast as they can 1,000 yards, get into the internment.
Remember that, not remember, the Osama thing, right, in Pakistan, like, how secretly there was SEAL Team 6, like, secretly went there before anybody knows that, like, that was an attack. That was modern day, right, a decade plus ago, right, and that felt like, oh, look at that, like like stealthily mission. This is in World War II. They have to do this shit in World War II. Silently approach that and do a surprise attack. A plane flies over you, Mahusu plane, you know something's coming, but they have to do that silently. That is just insane.
Camp and stop the guards. So they figure that at best that's going to be about 15 minutes from the moment the paratroopers jump out of the plane to the moment that they're able to land, ditch their parachutes, grab their guns, and full assholes and elbows sprint all the way to the internment camp. That is still too long. That is 15 minutes where the Japanese have the opportunity to shoot as many people as possible. Easy solution. They're going to send in the 11th Airborne Division's recon platoon, which is like 11th Airborne Division is already above average. The recon platoon is their best guys on top of it. They're going to send in their recon platoon. They're going to link up with 800 guerrilla fighters, and they are going to be sitting right outside of Los Baños. And the second the C-47s fly overhead, they're going to launch an attack, and they're going to fight the guards in the internment camp, meaning that the guards are going to have to take up all their time fighting them as opposed to executing prisoners, and give the airborne guys enough time to get there to reinforce them, and they can overrun the camp. So this mission is already crazy. There's a lot of moving parts, but Mueller just has to assume that everything goes according to plan, because from there, it gets even harder. So when we assume that this is all went according to plan, this means that the guards have all been taken care of, and there's now approximately like 1,100-ish soldiers there between the guerrillas and the American forces, and there's approximately 2,100 internees that are in their final stages of starving to death, and they now have to transport that 2,100 people 40 miles away, and they don't have any vehicles. So that in itself is a huge logistical issue, but then you have to also add on to the fact that there is 10,000 Japanese Tiger Division soldiers blocking the route to get back to where you need to go. So at this point, Henry Mueller's like, you know what? We're just going to do some gangster shit. We're going to drive our tanks through the biggest lake in the Philippines to get there. So in addition to the guerrillas and the recon platoon waiting in the bushes for their moment to attack, the paratroopers falling from the sky, there is also going to be an entire battalion of amphibious tractors, Amtraks, floating tanks that are going to drive across Laguna.
This shit looks like Normandy. Imagine that. Oh my god, what the fuck? They're on the sea as well. They're coming from water. That is a power move, right? There's a psychological element there, right? And suddenly attack happens, like everybody's attacking. Somehow there are like ambush attacks where you are. You see plane flying up, paratroopers with the gliders and shit. There are like parachutes, and then this the thing on the water. You see that like tanks floating in water. That is a powerful message. Like, okay, we are attacking you from all sides. This is happening.
Bay, the biggest lake in the Philippines, and then drive 2 miles further inland to hit up Los Baños, and then they are going to be the ones that smash through the gate, and they are going to pick up all the internees and drive them back across the lake into friendly territory. It's genius. The only problem at this point is that they don't have enough Amtraks to be able to load up everybody at the internment camp. So when the Amtraks do show up in Los Baños, they're going to load up all the kids, all the women, and the men that are the sickest and unable to walk the 2 miles to Laguna de Bay. Then the Amtraks are going to take off, drive/sail all the way back across the biggest lake of the Philippines, drop people off, turn around, head back across it again to go pick up everybody else. And that's the problem, because while they're waiting with their backs to a giant body of water, that infantry division, the Tiger Division of 10,000 angry Japanese soldiers, are going to have time to make it back to the internment camp, track them down, and presumably slaughter everybody, because they're not going to stand a chance. It would be 10-1, and these guys are going to be showing up with tanks, mortars, and artillery. So in order to address that, they're going to build up a massive American force right on the front line, directly in front of this Japanese Tiger Division, effectively forcing them to have a Mexican standoff with the American division. And this is going to put the Japanese leadership in the position of like, I know that there's a prison raid going on directly behind me, but if I turn around to address it, this entire American army is going to kick my ass. So they're effectively just going to have to sit there in this staring contest and let this raid go on behind them, even though they know it's happening. It's genius. Mueller is effectively playing 4D chess. So Henry Mueller takes his plan to General Swing, lays it all out, and General Swing is like, okay, let's do it. It should work. The problem is we can't do it yet because we don't have enough manpower. We're still fighting the Battle of Manila, and we've taken so many casualties between Leyte, fighting down through Luzon, and now the Battle of Manila. We just don't have the guys to spare right now, but we're going to do it as soon as we can. So they're forced to kick the can down the road for like 2 weeks, and during this 2 weeks, somebody from Los Baños escapes the prison camp and makes their way over to the 11th Airborne's area of operation, and they get picked up, and Mueller hears about it. So Mueller wants to talk to this guy. He wants to know everything about the camp. Maybe he's missing something. Maybe there's something he could do to make his plan better, make it more effective, save more people. So Mueller brings this guy into his office and they start talking, and this guy he's brilliant. He's memorized everything. He was previously an engineer, and this dude went as far as pacing off different buildings. He actually had measurements of how far it is from the gate to this building, from this building to that building.
Damn.
He knew where every machine gun emplacement was. He was able to draw out a very accurate map, every guard tower, everything. So that alone was a huge help. But in addition to that, Mueller wanted to know the schedule. He wanted to know the daily life of everybody living in Los Baños. So he has him walking through an entire day. Like, when you wake up, tell me everything that happens. What's the patterns? What are the guards up to? What's the deal? At this point, the gentleman informs Mueller that every single day it begins with most of the guards, like 99% of them, all but like 20 dudes that they leave at the guard towers, proceed to go lock all their guns in their barracks, and then they go out in the field next to the internment camp in their underwear and sandals and do calisthenics. They're out there doing stretches and push-ups and shit to stay in good fighting shape. To which Henry Mueller's like, fucking excuse me? You mean to tell me that if I time this mission right, I literally get to catch these guys outside of the internment camp in sandals and their underwear while they're tired and sweaty? I gotta go. He goes straight to General Swing's office and he's like, hey, we got to move up the timeline for this mission. The original schedule was that the paratroopers were going to be jumping out of the C-47s at 8 o'clock in the morning, and Henry is like, we got to bump that back. They got to jump out at 7 in the morning, right in the middle of these guys doing push-ups in their underwear. We're literally going to
That is insane. They're not expecting somebody to attack. It's a big ass camp. Why would somebody attack? I'm pretty sure we'll know it in advance. They don't not think of surprise attacks. Like, imagine that. It's just like everybody on the fucking, they're like doing their exercise and stretching, like flexing and shit. And suddenly, like people with like paratroopers, probably camouflage and all that, and with guns and shit. Hello. Okay, there is no fight. Fight has over there. That's what that is.
Going to catch the enemy with their pants down. Now, the reason he had to go all the way to General Swing to get this approved was because before that, the earliest they could be there was 8 o'clock in the morning. The reason for that was because they wanted the C-47s to have the light of dawn to be able to take off, just because it's easier getting that many planes in the air when everybody can see and it's not dark out. But everybody pretty much agreed, this is worth it, we're going to do it anyways. So that's the plan. The plan is set in stone. We just have to wait until we have the manpower to actually pull it off. And then several things happen. The first one being that a local farmer and fisherman is sailing his boat around Laguna de Bay, and he ends up seeing the Los Baños prison camp or prisoners from it somehow, and he reports back to the Americans how sickly and how poorly they are being treated. So that's number one. The secondary thing that happens is Vanderpool's guerrillas report back that the Japanese are digging a massive hole in the ground, a humongous trench, and at the top of it are machine gun emplacements, and everybody assumes the worst, that they are digging a mass grave. So that's it. Time to shit or get off the pot. We're doing this, and we're doing it right now. Get that big military force built up right in front of the Tiger Division so they can start their Mexican standoff. Get the recon platoon out in the jungle with the guerrillas and spool up the C-47s. And for the love of God, somebody turn on Fortunate Son while we do it. I don't care if it doesn't come out till 1969 and it's February 23rd, 1945. Just make it happen. Early morning, February 23rd, 1945, all of the 11th Airborne Division guys start loading on to the C-47s. Now, originally they had just slotted one company to go in and make this jump, but a lot more than just one company worth of guys ends up showing up. Now, I can't prove this with any official military document. They weren't on the manifest, but it was very much one of those situations where everybody in the 11th Airborne Division wanted to be on this mission, okay? They'd already been through hell together. They fought through Leyte, they fought through Luzon, they're in the Battle of Manila, and they had freed Santo Tomas, and all of them had seen the horrors that were happening inside of that POW camp, and absolutely everybody wanted to help. So more guys showed up, whether they were supposed to or not, and they jumped as well. So they load up into the C-47s, they take off. Problem, one of the C-47's landing gear won't retract back up into the plane. Apparently, in the darkness of night, one of the maintainers on the ground forgot to pull the locking pin out of the landing gear, and now they can't pull the landing gear up, meaning they can't get up to speed. They're gonna miss the hit time. Okay, right out of the gate, that's a big fucking problem. I mean, it's only one of the planes, so it's got approximately like 28 paratroopers in it, but in a mission this small, 28 guys can be a make or break amount of dudes. And we don't have time to turn around, pull the pin out, and get that plane back up into the air. We can't have all of the C-47s slow down because then none of them will make their hit time. And they all have to be there when they're supposed to be there because those Amtraks are showing up on time. The recon platoon and the guerrillas are showing up on time. And most importantly, we got to catch the enemy literally with their pants down in a field doing push-ups. At this point, the pilots are like, fuck it, I'm just gonna floor it the entire way there with the landing gear down. I'll just beat the atmosphere into submission for the next 40 miles, to which the radio tower is like, you're gonna blow an engine if you do that, and the pilots respond with, well, let's hope I blow it on the way back. And I think we can all agree that's gangster as fuck. Well, that's going on. The recon platoon and the scouts are going and they're getting into position. And one of the recon guys, a guy by the name of Terry Santos, as he's coming up to the camp, approaches this guard hut that's like kind of right out in the middle of nowhere. It's like an early warning system. And inside of it's just one man sleeping on his gun, and he's got a field phone in his other hand. And Terry pulls out his knife. He's going to kill this guy. But then he stops. He realizes that this guy's out there as an early warning system. He's probably got to check in every hour, every half hour, every 15 minutes. He has no idea. And if this guy misses a check-in, it's going to put the entire camp on alert. So he resheathes his knife and just sneaks past him. Okay, side note, luckiest Japanese soldier in the entire story, and he's being a complete shitbag. So all I'm saying, sometimes being a shitbag could save your life. I mean, what's the shitbag's creed? Never stand when you could sit, never sit when you could lay down, and never be awake when you could be asleep. Yeah, this just saved this guy's life. Anyways, this scout's...
I mean, for how long, though? Right? Japanese gonna lose. What's gonna happen? I don't know. Look, the thing is, we humans survived, like during the dinosaur time and things, our ancestors survived, right? Not humans, but our ancestors survived by being there, like laying low and hiding, basically. So it does work sometimes, but it's just like, come on, like you have to know when to do it, not do it, I guess. I don't know. But that is so insane thing, that guy, like, okay, wait a minute, he needs to check in. What if he needs to check in? That is most thing that most people would have put thought into it, right? Right now, when you think about, oh, look at the guard tower, he's gonna signal to people. Like, let's just kid. That's what everybody would think. Nobody's really thinking like, what if he has? This is like on site, on the field, like thinking things, right? You sitting there thinking like, okay, of course I would think that. But when you're actually in the field doing things, your brain is not so working the way it's working sitting on sofa or something, right? So all this kind of like calculation, like small things here and there, really changes the whole thing, doesn't it?
And the guerrillas, they all go out, they get in position. Thanks to the new drawn map from the previous escapee, they know where every single guard tower and guard hut is. And there are scouts literally sitting outside of them on the other side of the wall, next to the windows with grenades, waiting to hear the C-47s coming up, and they're just going to toss grenades into all the guard checkpoints and take out all the guards at once immediately. So they're in position and they're waiting, and it feels like forever, but it's probably only like 5 or 10 minutes, and they're waiting, and then they start to hear the faint drone of the C-47s off in the distance, and they keep waiting until it gets louder and louder. And then as soon as the Japanese guys out working in the field turn to start looking up towards the sky, they attack. Every guard hut on the ground gets a grenade through the window. Every guard tower gets raked with machine gun fire. Terry Santos runs in, and the barracks that has all the guns inside of it, and he throws white phosphorus grenades inside, lighting the entire building on fire so that they can't even retrieve their guns if they wanted to. Another scout runs up to the commandant's office where the man in charge is supposed to be, and the only Japanese man in there runs and jumps out the window of the second-story building, and allegedly the scout shoots him out of midair with his Colt 45.
Nice shooting, Tex.
Some of the guards try to fight, the paratroopers show up, and all in all, this entire affair is quick, violent, and over, with somewhere between 70 and 80 of the Japanese guards being killed in action, and the remainder of them fled off into the wood line in their underwear and sandals. So it's going perfect. Everything is gone 100% according to plan. Next thing you know, the Amtraks drive right through the front gate. They roll up, their guys get out, they start trying to help load people into the Amtraks so they can all get out of there. And here's where things go off the rails. You see, what they didn't anticipate in this plan was a lack of cooperation from all the internees. And to be fair, they're not trying to be difficult. They don't want to not cooperate, but they don't realize the gravity of the situation. In their mind, you gotta remember, they're starving, they're hungry, they've lived here for the past 3 years, this is their home. They think that the Americans have come to save them, and they are now behind friendly lines. They don't realize that they're 40 miles deep behind enemy lines, and that there's an army of 10,000 Japanese soldiers coming to potentially kill them at any moment. And the army guys don't exactly have time to explain that to 2,100 people, so they're kind of sitting over there like, guys, I need you to get on the Amtraks right now. And they're like running back to the barracks like, oh, let me go pack my bags real quick. No, we don't have time for any of that shit. It's chaos. It's a complete shit show. There's 2,100 starving.
Look, this is the real footage that is so insane. Look at that.
People running around trying to pack their bags. There's people coming out of the barracks with furniture and mattresses and shit. The paratroopers are 100% just channeling that.
I'm not gonna lie, that is insane to me when I like their condition, how horrible they lived, right? They were starved. I don't care what my things left behind. I would run. The first chance I get, I would run and get inside that Amtrak. Like, fuck this, I'm getting out. Anything else I don't care about.
That dad energy of like trying to get mom and the kids out of the movie theater, into the car, sit down, buckle up, shut up, so I can get us out of this parking lot to beat all the traffic out of here. They're channeling that energy. And finally, they're like, no, we're not bringing any of this shit. The clothes on your back and you get on the Amtrak. We have to leave right now. And they're like, fuck it. They take white phosphorus grenades and they go and they light all the buildings on fire so that people have to get out of them because they need all of these people to fucking leave now. And amidst all the chaos, there's this famous interaction where this young woman in her 20s that's been in this internment camp the entire time comes up to one of the biggest, best looking paratroopers there and is like, are you a Marine? And he's like, no, I'm a paratrooper, like trying to be Mr. Big Badass, right? And she's like, oh. All the time I've spent here in this internment camp, I've always dreamed about being rescued by a Marine. Which is just the ultimate cherry on top of this shit Sunday. Like, hey, sorry things aren't going that great at this moment. Also, don't know if it helps. Just wanted you to know that I would rather bang a Marine. In addition to that, there was a bunch of Catholic priests and nuns that had dropped to their knees praying, thanking God for literally sending angels to come and save them. At which point, the angels are like, bro, do that on the Amtrak. Get up and then go take a knee in the tank so we can get this shit going because I'm trying to actually finish saving you guys. I'm not done yet. And this is my favorite part of the story, right? Because Amtraks all have names painted on the side, right? They're like tanks. Like the crew gives their tank a funny name or a cool name or a badass name. Like Gene Lafayette Poole called his M4 Sherman tank In the Mood. Well, this particular Amtrak that they loaded up all of the Catholic priests and nuns onto On the other side of it, its name was, and I quote, the Impatient Virgin, which is fucking hilarious. Anyways, all the Amtraks get loaded up to maximum capacity and they take off. So now we've got all the paratroopers and somewhere between 500 and 600 of the healthiest looking internees available, and they're gonna have to walk 2 miles
Imagine when they get out and sees the name, like, what the fuck?
over to the lake. Okay, now cut back to the Amtraks. They're driving to the lake and they start taking fire from the tree line. They can see the muzzle flashes off in the distance. So one of the American soldiers in one of the Amtraks is trying to get up to the 50 cal to return fire, but there's so many internees in there and nobody's listening. They're all cheering and talking and nobody can hear him. He's telling people to move, but they're not listening. So he finally just literally gets on top and crawls over people to get onto this machine gun to start returning fire. And this dude is just dumping ammunition everywhere in that general direction, literally cutting down the trees that these people are firing from. And finally, when he quits seeing muzzle flashes, he stops firing into this tree line, and as the gun falls silent and the ringing in his ears finally goes away after a couple seconds, he hears a baby crying. And he looks down and there's an internee woman that was obviously starving to death, and she was holding a 3-day-old baby named Lois, and the baby was crying because one of the hot brass casings from the 50 caliber machine gun had fallen down and burnt this little 3-day-old baby's face. And this American soldier's name was Dwight Clark, felt like the biggest piece of shit on the planet because he had just burnt this little baby's face with a brass casing. But as sad as that is, everything works out as best as it possibly could because they get all of the internees across the lake, drop them off, turn back around, go pick up everybody else and bring them back safely. They got every single internee in Los Baños out of that camp. Okay, worth mentioning, prior to this mission, the chain of command always sets parameters as to what's going to deem this mission a success, and this mission being successful was if they were going to be able to liberate 1/3 of the internees, and they got all of them. Unfortunately, not everybody would get a happily ever after. Among the Japanese soldiers that escaped in the first attack was Sadaki Konishi. He fled, made his way back to the Tiger Division, at which point, later on in the coming days, he would convince the leadership of the Tiger Division to go back to the internment camp, and there was one village that was adjacent to it, and for whatever reason, he decided that that village should pay the price for his embarrassment, because apparently they would have had something to do with it, surely, even though they really didn't. More or less, the entire village was burnt to the ground and they killed everyone for the crime of simply existing near the site of their embarrassment, even though they had nothing to do with it. About a week later, American forces would win the Battle of Manila and they would continue to advance southward towards Los Baños where they had previously been, and the 11th Airborne and the rest of the Allied forces would come face to face and see what the Japanese had done to that village because of their success during the Los Baños prison raid. For this, Sadaki Kanishi was captured, tried, and sentenced to death by hanging in 1949. Which,
come on, man. No, that's why'd you hang him? That's too easy, man. He's just like, okay, just like dead. I don't know, man. People think death penalty is like the ultimate. No, it's not. It's just like an escape like that. What an asshole, man. It really pisses me off, right? What does yeah, I don't know. The whole Tiger Division, he convinced them to do this shit. Everybody must pay. I hope that it was something like that, right? What was that, like Nuremberg trials or whatever that was? I hope there was something similar to that for them. This is insane.
And seems like far too quick of a death for somebody that is that
seriously
evil, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a bad person. But the good that came out of this was that over 2,000 internees that had been tortured and starved for over 3 years would finally get to return home and live happily ever after. The Sacred 11, the naval nurses that volunteered to go and help keep all of these people alive while also living under the same conditions, were all awarded the Bronze Star and are highly regarded as heroes. The 11th Airborne Division got almost no break from the combat as they continued to finish clearing out the Philippines. The raid of Los Baños is considered to be the most perfect airborne operation that has ever been executed and is deemed as a great success. Despite that, most of you have never even heard of it, and there's one simple reason for that. On the very same day as the Los Baños raid, February 23rd, 1945, a group of Marines fashioned together a couple of drainage pipes and put the American flag on it and hoisted it over a battlefield where they were victorious at Iwo Jima. And when push came to shove, the newspapers decided to air the story that had the cooler picture. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I have absolutely no idea how to end this video, so I'm just gonna end it with my favorite part. Fast forward to 1998, 43 years later, there's a woman by the name of Lois that gets a phone call seemingly out of the blue. She answers it, says hello, and it's an elderly man on the other line by the name of Dwight Clark, and he says, "Are you baby Lois from Los Baños?" To which she replies, "Yes." And the next thing he says is, "Do you have scars on your face?" This man fought through the Pacific in World War II. He has probably both seen and had to do horrific things to survive. And out of all of that, it has tormented this man for the past 43 years, knowing that he may have hurt a sweet, innocent little baby. And after that time, 4 decades, he finally finds out that she did not have any scars on her face. And that is probably the happiest ending with the most closure that I could possibly give you. So, thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out. This is a really long video. I need a drink. Oh, hey, real quick. One more thing. If you guys wanted to know more about the 11th Airborne, there's a guy that actually specializes in it by the name of Jeremy Holm. He actually helped me out with this video. He's written 3 books on the subject, and he has his own YouTube channel exclusively making content about the 11th Airborne. I'm going to have that link down below if you guys were interested. Other than that, I'm going to go get that beer now. See ya.
Mr. Stanley Kingsbury, formerly General Manager of Trans-Pacific Trading Company, ex-Chief of Police and Fire Departments of Los Baños Internment Camp. Mr. Kingsbury, would you describe in your own words your reaction to your liberation on February the 23rd?
I went about my business, dressed, doing the regular duties in the room, when all of a sudden I heard the sound of planes very near, looked out of my cubicle, found first 3 planes came over one of the lower barracks. I noticed a white sheet drop out of one. I'd read a great deal about parachutes. I'd never seen them so near me before. All of a sudden, the 9 planes were letting these parachutes out. It just seems that the air was filled with them. At that time, shooting began. Japanese bullets were flying thick and fast. Things were pretty hot there for about a half, 3/4 of an hour. In the meantime, the boys who come in told us that we had to evacuate. And within the question of a few minutes, we were on the M tracks, where we rolled out of the camp, down to the shores of Laguna de Bay. That's the lake. It was nearby, 2 kilometers away from the camp.
I imagine, Mr. Kingsbury, that you felt as if the entire United States Army was dropping on your head when they started coming.
I certainly did, and I even have to pinch myself now to realize that I am really free and can talk and do as I please.
You can do anything you want to, Mr.
After
Kingsbury.
1145 days under the Emperor from Japan, you can't realize how I feel.
No, sir, I can't. I understand, Mr. Kramer, that you were wounded by a stray Japanese bullet during the liberation.
Well, there really isn't much to say except the bullets were flying right and left, and we were so excited we didn't know what to do, so...
Tell me, Miss Kramer, what are your plans for the future?
I really don't know. There's so many things I want to do that I can't make up my mind.
I need something to do.
Well, what do you want to say? What do you want to do? Hmm? United States. You mean you want to go back to the United States?
I'm nice to him, okay?
The camera's off right now. You don't have to lie.
Nick.
What?
I'm nice to him, people.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Give you everything you want because you're a prince.
Everything?
No.
Okay, seriously, man. Oh, that was the most intense story he's tell, right? I'm not gonna compare every other story he's tell in like what is more significant, but the most intense story. His storytelling ability is just better. His scripting is much better. It's an hour-long video, but it just like feels worth it, right? This was an insane video, man. Seriously, there's a guy who talks about this 11th Airborne Division's thing as a whole channel. His whole channel just filled with that. That's how much thing that is. So it's surprising to me that nobody talks about Los Baños, this thing, right? There is a... I mean, what do you... If there's a Hollywood producer, writer, director there, every checklist, this checks it, right? There's a proper antagonist, that asshole, right? The camp leader, right? Behind everything. Even in the end, he managed to burn out a fucking village, which pisses you off, right? And it doesn't mean you're evil if you wish, like, okay, him getting hanged was such a small thing. It was a small thing, right? I don't know, just like it was an easy exit for him. This was so fucked up. Everything that happened, right? Every story after everybody just got rescued, right? Man, the 11th Airborne Division, like the way they did it, like they were thinking like, okay, everything was too timed. That's the thing. Everything had to work in time, and most of the time, that's not how things work. In a military operation, if there's like 3-4 elements, chances of all of them working on time is really hard. That's why they were probably thinking of 1/3 of the. If the 1/3 of the people get rescued, that's success enough. That's why they were thinking that. They didn't thought of like everybody's invested enough that nobody's gonna fuck up. Right? Everybody wants to save these people, and everything went perfect, and everybody got saved. That is so insane. Man, this was strong. All right, well, that was the greatest rescue. 11th Airborne Division's epic raid on Los Baños. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you next time.